So this is a horror comedy that takes place on Juneteenth. It does the stereotype of black people die first in horror movies. Um, I personally don't see that very often in horror movies. Unfortunately, black characters very rarely survive in horror movies, or they do die really early on. Um, but I don't see it very often. Where characters, are black that are the first to go. Like, except for Scream 2, which is something they mention. Um, Hell, two very famous horror movies. Um, the black character is actually one of the last to die. Scream 3, Tyson, he's one of the last characters to die. I believe he is the last character to die besides Ghostface himself. And the one rapist guy that Roman kills. Spoilers for Scream 3. And Freddy versus Jason, there's a black character in that. And she is like one of the last people to die. I believe she is the last person to die besides Freddy and Jason themselves. Um, so I've never personally seen that stereotype in horror movies, and I've seen a lot of horror movies, whether they're famous, low budget, or whatever in between. So the movie starts off with these two characters. They find this game, and it's a very racist game. It has a racist depiction of a black person, and they're turned off on it. They want to cancel the people that own the cabin. They take pictures of it and like, oh, we're canceling their ass, and goofy shit like that. That I think they do have a right to be mad at the cabin owners, having a racist board game. But I think cancel culture is goofy because it doesn't really do anything. It's really something the right made up to excuse themselves, because it's a lot easier to say, oh, they're canceling me when you have rape allegations than it is to go, I have rape allegations. So, I've never been a fan of the cancel culture shit. Um, More so because it gives people a way to defend themselves from serious shit. Like, they'll go, instead of acknowledging the shit they did, I'm being canceled. Um, so yeah, they want to cancel the people that own the place, but she decides she wants to play the game, and she, for some reason, her boyfriend Sean answers the question. It's like, name a character in a horror movie that survived, a black character that survived in a horror movie. And he says Jada Pickett Smith from Scream 2, who's probably one of the most iconic kills in history. I liked it better than the opening in Scream 1. And yeah, that was wrong. So he gets killed because he answered the question wrong, even though it was her question. Because I'm pretty sure she picked up the card. Um, and like he answered the question, but later in the game they're like, later on the TV they're like, oh, Sean was killed because he didn't want to participate in the game. But he literally answered a question, so he was participating. But whatever. Morgan does not get killed until like an hour and a half later. Like, we don't see her besides one more scene where she gets her wig ripped off because they were trying to scalp her, but they didn't realize that she was wearing a wig. And that is the last we see of her until later, where we see her being dumped in a well, and she was apparently killed off screen. Pretty lame way to kill her. They should have just killed her in the opening scene. And that is probably the longest somebody in the opening scene had survived just to be killed off screen. Just very strange. Like, I'm a person that's actually fine with off-screen kills every now and then. I don't think every kill should be on screen, but that was a really dumb off-screen kill. Um, so now we are stuck with this friend group: Allison, Deshawn, Nameen, King. I don't know the other girl's name or the other girl. There's a lot of characters in this movie, and there's also Clifton. who was invited by somebody else, and maybe he was lying about that. He never outright says that he actually lied about that. Like, he says he was invited via email, an evite. They end up finding the board game too and playing it a little bit. Then they eventually get asked, like, who's the blackest? And they all start voting against each other. And Clifton ends up being on the chopping block because he's not, like, really answering. And they said that he hadn't been invited. That he kind of fucking just showed up. But he said earlier in the movie that he was invited by Morgan. And they didn't even really say anything about it. They didn't combat him about it or anything. They were just kind of okay with it. I don't know why they wrote that scene in just for them later to question why he's here. So then he's repeating himself on he was invited by Morgan. Just feels kind of dumb. He starts saying stuff like, to prove that he's not as black as the other people. Like, he hasn't even seen Friday? I've seen Friday, and I'm white as shit. I've only seen the first one. He says he likes Jimmy Fallon, but prefers him in his roots or something. Maybe it's like a hair thing. I've never watched the Jimmy Fallon show. And of course, his last thing, it made me go, what, out loud. I had to pause it for a bit after this. I said what 3 times, because I was fucking surprised. Because I liked Clifton. He was a bit of a nerdy stereotype, but he had a few funny lines here and there, and I thought they were being unnecessarily rude to him. Like, he doesn't know how to play spades instead of teaching him, or at least trying to tell him, like, a few of the rules. They're like, well, guess you can't play, and they're just kind of fucking rude to him. So I'm not a huge fan of all these characters. I don't hate them or anything, but they're not the nicest people. So I'm not exactly rooting for him, but I'm not exactly rooting against him, which I guess is a good in-between for a horror movie. I probably like King the most, and I thought he died when he got shot again with an arrow. He probably should have, but he does survive. So, yeah, Clifton outs himself as a Trump supporter. He says he can't be black because he voted for Trump. And then he adds salt to the wound by saying he did it twice. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, kill the fucker. Because, honestly, it's not even a politic thing. Trump's just a terrible person. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You should see that piece of shit and go, wow, he's a piece of shit. But so many people act like it's political. Like, oh, you don't like him because he's a Republican. No, I don't like him because he's an asshole. And he decides to even add more salt to the wound by doing a racist dog whistle as a black person, which is just insane. Like, yeah, there's unfortunately some black people that voted for Trump, which is their right to do. But he fucking leaves the room and says, all lives matter. Oh my god, I wanted him dead even more after that. Which makes his death kind of anticlimactic for me, anyway. He gets shot with an arrow. I didn't even think he died, because King went through more than that. But, yeah, they try and write it off as if he died. Then we end up finding him in the basement again, and it turns out he's not actually dead, and he's been the person behind the scenes having these people in racist blackface mask in a racist house that has like a Confederate flag in the basement. He's behind all this. He had hired them to kill them. Just, that's insane. You hired racist people to kill black people. They try and give him a little bit of a sad backstory. I don't think you're supposed to sympathize with him, but he's from Vermont, and he didn't have really many black friends. And, it was cool to see, people like him. But they ended up bullying him for playing not knowing how to play spades and questioning his blackness. So then he got drunk for the first time ever and got behind a wheel and accidentally killed a woman. And he spent some time in jail for 4 years, and he decided he needed revenge. And he went about it in the weirdest way. He decides to start killing people via a racist board game. Like, I really enjoy this movie, but when you look into his motivations and how he's, trying to kill these people, it's really stupid. But the movie itself is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I'd probably watch it again. Which I can't say that about a lot of movies. I really enjoy it. I might even watch it next year on Juneteenth. Because it's a really fun movie. But the motivations of the killer is just really stupid. It's like the same thing with Scream. I love the Scream movies. But Billy's motivation is really fucking stupid. And so on and so on. With all the other killers. It's just... Yeah, like... He wants to kill these people because they made fun of him and he went behind a wheel and got drunk. Like, that's your fault. You chose to get behind the wheel. You chose to drink. Yeah, they were assholes and they shouldn't have been assholes to you. But that made you want to hire people to kill them? And when they failed, he decides he's going to do it himself. And he does it in like a really whiny way. And basically asks them to do the same question that they did earlier. He's like, oh, kill the blackest person in your friend group. But they had chose Clifton earlier. Which has gotta hurt about that. Even though they didn't really mean it. They really did it because he was a Trump supporter. So yeah, they get into a little fight. He gets like shot in the arm with a bow. And then he gets like Spartan kicked. It's a pretty fun movie. Just a dumb killer motive and don't know why he's like using a racist board game to kill them. Maybe because what they did could be used as like racist somewhat. Questioning a black person's blackness is a bit weird. I wasn't a big fan of the character Allison. She purposely... it's one thing to become friends with somebody that done you wrong again. It's another thing to bring that person into a friend group with other friends that don't like him and expect them to be okay with it. Deshaun openly says that he doesn't like Nameen. That is perfectly fine. People are allowed to not like people. Especially because he's a cheating asshole, and that's what he did in the past. He had cheated on her a bunch of times. But then Allison invites him, doesn't tell him, and expects him to be cool with it. And she puts Molly in his mouth, like, sure, he's fine with it. But she puts Molly in his mouth to calm him down about this drama that she basically created. So I was not a big fan of Allison. And Deshaun's reasoning later, near the end of the movie, on why he was so pissed about Nameen being there, felt kind of asshole-ish too, because I was originally on his side, but he's like, well, he always came crying to me and I took care of you, and now you're choosing him over me. I don't think that's exactly what she was trying to do. What she did was selfish, but I don't know. This movie is a lot of fun, but still wasn't a big fan of Allison or Nameen. And the fact that the backstory of this killer is that they just kind of bullied this socially awkward guy that just wanted to have fun in a card game is very strange. And it's even stranger the way he goes about it. A racist board game. Okay. But the movie itself, I do want to say that is I had a lot of fun watching this movie. It's a very fun movie, and I think people should watch it.